right, so I wanted to learn how to play chess, and the people told me, if you're gonna learn, you gotta learn from one of the best in the state, 4-time champion. How did you make that happen? And you're so cool about it, too.
You know, my first tournament, it didn't go real well, but I'm competitive, and so I studied, and it took a while, but, you know, I got better. And eventually won 4 state championships.
And now you're teaching students and everybody else how to play as well.
Yeah, I run tournaments for kids. You know, I've had students before, so it's definitely a game that keeps giving back to you.
Now, I like how your stance is on the table, because I see you thinking about it right now. I'm gonna tell you, I know nothing about this game, so you can beat me all day long. But if we're learning how to play chess, what is the first thing you have to know?
You know, a lot of times when people are trying to decide what to move, they'll put their arm out. And I often tell kids, I'm like, there's nothing about having your arm out that makes you smarter.
Okay.
You know, put your arms back, think about it, decide what you're going to do, and then do it.
Okay. So now, what are the pieces called? I'm saying we're going beyond basic this morning. What are the pieces called?
Yeah, so these are called pawns. Think of this as, you know, kind of your infantry if it was an army. Rooks, knights, bishop, queen, king. King's the most important, because if the king's getting attacked, that's how you lose. Okay. So typically what people do, and there's kind of like a measured way you'll see people move, you know, where it's, you know, it's like they do kind of a gentle move. But typically what people want to do to start the game out is make a claim in the center of the board. It's kind of like, you know, like Connect 4 or something. You know, you don't throw it down on the side. Okay. You tend to start somewhere in the middle, and chess kind of works the same way that way. So, and so it's all about, you know, trying to get squares covered or attack squares. So like in this case, you've got a pawn out, and so I might just, you know, oppose you by putting another pawn out. So we're both taking room in the center, we're both attacking some squares, and we're both also opening up room. So like, you know, for example, this is the bishop. You know, now the bishop can move. Before the bishop was, when it was like this, the bishop couldn't move, now it can. And so, you know, you can follow it up. This is what we call development in chess, which is where you're getting your pieces off their starting squares and you're getting them into the game.
Okay, now hold on, because I thought you had to stay on certain types of squares, and you can't jump this many and that many. Yeah,
so like bishops, for example, they always stay on the same square. So like this is the dark squared bishop. Okay. It can only go on dark squares. Okay. This is the light squared bishop. It can only go on light squares. The queen can go in any direction. The knights have the special ability to jump. So, you know, so for example, you've made this move right here. I can actually respond by doing this and jumping the pawns here. Knights move in what we call kind of like an L shape. Okay. So moving into an L shape. So now the knight's on the board. This is more development. I'm putting pressure on squares. And so typically, you know, you might respond, for example, by getting your knight out. So, and now this is the beginning of what we call a threat, because you're threatening to go and put your knight here and attack this pawn twice, once with this bishop that moves on the dark squares and once with the knight. So, you know, it's that what you have to do as a player is you have to look for, you know, checks, which check is when you're attacking the king. You have to look for captures, and you have to look for threats to check and threats to capture. So like, for example, I know you might be trying to move here because I know that's a good move. And so I might push my pawn here, because pawns capture diagonally, to where if you go and then move your knight, I would just take it. So forces you to then do something else.
Now what happens?
Well, that's,
I can't do that.
That wasn't an L shape, so you didn't quite didn't quite complete the L. I'd recommend moving something different. Like, for example, you know, you could move this pawn one square. That would be a perfectly normal move in that position. So now your other bishop, which can only move on the light squares, it can actually, it's not stuck anymore, right? Okay, so when it's your turn next, you can move it.
He can go
well, not that way. It can't. Only the knight can hop. So.
Oh, that's right.
So after I make a move, now you can move it, but you'd have to move it somewhere along here. Now, if you moved it here, I would just take it with my pawn. If you moved it here, I would take it with this pawn. So you'd want to move it either here or here. Either one of those is a good move in this position. Okay, there's a lot to learn. There is a lot to learn. So where can people get in contact with you and learn more information about what you're doing on all levels? Yeah, so we have a website. It's the Mississippi Chess Association. It's mcachess.org, or the simpler way is go to Google or whatever your favorite search engine is and type in Mississippi chess, and we're typically the first link.
Okay. Now, you know we got to bring you back soon.
Yeah.
And do more and more lessons. And I believe one day I might beat you. I'm lying. I'm not going to beat you. I'm not. But definitely, you said it's a game for the mind and something really good that people should get into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I know when I was in high school and I started playing, I had classmates that were maybe like a C student and then became a, you know, an A-B student. I mean, you know, one of the things you learn if you want to get better at chess is one is you have to study, and the other is you have to be prepared to kind of like sit quiet for a while you play a game and pay attention. Those are good life skills and good school skills.